Here's the point that I am qualified to say. Daryl Morey, a good man, an exceptional executive, and a conscientious human being. What were you thinking speaking up on this issue? That much I can say. Because you see, as your team is over there, and you take this kind of position, it's not just about your feelings. It's about the Houston Rockets. It's about the National Basketball Association. It's about a multitude of people that extends far beyond yourself, that you have compromised because you had this insatiable appetite to disseminate a tweet. You don't know better than that? You don't know better than that. See, folks want to sit up here and act like we all should have the license to say what we want to say, how we want to say it, to whomever we damn well please, because it's in the interest of righteousness. Ladies and gentlemen, things aren't that simple all the time. Your view of how things should be isn't always shared. And sometimes you take a unilateral or a monolithic approach to things, and they're neither unilateral or monolithic in any way. What am I saying here? I'm saying that Daryl Morey had an obligation to think about the Houston Rockets organization and about the National Basketball Association before himself, particularly when all that entailed you was an impulse. Did anybody take a moment to think about what this may have done to Yao Ming, who starred for the Houston Rockets for years, whose presence on the Houston Rockets made the Houston Rockets organization the #1 NBA commodity in China? He's now overseeing the whole Chinese Basketball Federation. Whatever debates we may have about how their nation is different than ours, and how their rights might differ from ours, and what have you, who's to say that Yao Ming wasn't working towards progress? And how there's a dance that he's got to exercise in the process of trying to facilitate better relations to the point where greater influence can ultimately come about. And how those words alone might have compromised him in his own nation because of his support of the Rockets organization and unquestionably Daryl Morey. I want to say for the record, I don't think that Daryl Morey intended for all of this to go down. But I want this to be a lesson to everybody. You got trolls in social media, and you got ignorant-ass people out there talking their nonsense all the time, acting like you got a license to stick out your chest, do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, because it's right in their eyes, and damn it, that's all that's required. Well, it's not all that's required when you're representing somebody else, and you got your hand out taking money from somebody else. You don't get to just represent yourself. You represent them too. And I'm going to say this, and I don't know if anybody else is going to say this, but I'll be damned if I'm going to avoid saying this. There is no one who should understand that better than folks here at ESPN. That's right, I said it. Jimmy Pitaro succeeds John Skipper, comes over to ESPN, and one of the first things he said publicly that he was unapologetic about is, we're a sports network. We're not a political network. That's what he said. Excuse me. That's what he said. People tune into us to expect sports. It doesn't mean that we're devoid of any feeling, any passion, or anything intelligent to eloquent and articulate to the masses as it pertains to political views, it means that there's a level of understanding that we should have. That when it comes to the issue of politics, that's not what people tune into ESPN for. And we have an obligation to take that into consideration before we open our mouth and take the kind of position that could potentially compromise Walt Disney, ESPN, or anything else. That's the real world. Doesn't matter what job you have. You have an obligation to adopt and embrace the interest of those you collect a paycheck from. Those same trolls, those same commentators, columnists and beyond out there that will encourage you to be real, straightforward, stick out your chest, go for it all. You don't see them talking about people that pay them. See, that's the real world. It's not to say you stand still with your hands tied behind your back and do nothing. It's not to say that you be silent, inactive, non-active, and do nothing. What it is to say is that you don't just think about yourself when you act. That's what boys and girls do. That's what children do. Grown-ups, adults, people who understand what it's like to build something, to have something, and to be responsible for people other than themselves, they get that you don't just speak willy-nilly, run your mouth without any thoughts of the consequences coming down the pike because of the lives you affected beyond yourself. It's what adults do. Daryl Morey is an adult. He's a good man and a quality executive. This action by him was just not smart. People can stand up and defend what he said all they want to. That ain't the point. It wasn't his place. And Tillman Fertitta was absolutely 1,000% right in separating him and individualizing him from the rest of the Rockets organization because he had no business doing what he did. A 20-year relationship between the Rockets and China, virtually down the tubes. Jobs lost. Millions of dollars compromised because you want to tweet a sentence. Come on now. It's time to grow up, people.